All right, kia ora everyone. It's Nathan Rose here in beautiful Auckland, New Zealand. I am really excited to take you through this demo tonight as it answers a fantastic question I got overnight on one of my LinkedIn posts. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for asking such an epic question. So, some of you may remember earlier this week I posted about my experiences uninstalling the Dataverse Accelerator app from an environment, some of the issues that I ran into. And overnight, Rebecca asked, can you still run low-code plugins in an environment once you've removed the Dataverse Accelerator app? Now, that is an awesome question. I love it because, firstly, I would never have thought to ask that question myself. And secondly, we get to really dig in and see what's going on. So, Rebecca, thank you for asking that question. Let's get into the meat of the answer. All right, so low-code plugins are made up of a few different components. So there are some Dataverse tables, and then there's some plugin assemblies behind the scenes. So let me just show you here in this environment. So this environment AI Playground, I uninstalled the Dataverse Accelerator app. I did that because I was having some issues. I was getting errors when creating low-code plugins, and I didn't see any updates available, so I thought maybe I would uninstall it and reinstall it. At the moment, it looks like you can uninstall it. I've been having some issues reinstalling it, but I'm working through that in a help desk ticket with the Microsoft support staff. But let's just take a quick look. I'll just show you. So the Dataverse Accelerator app is not installed in this environment. So the solutions aren't there. When we come to the apps, we can see it's not there. Cool. All right. So we've got a environment that doesn't have doesn't have the Dataverse Accelerator app. But what about the underlying infrastructure to run low-code plugins? So if you've gotten into some of the details of this, low-code plugins are made up of a few tables in Dataverse, and then depending on the type of plugin, there are some actual plugin assemblies behind the scenes. So let's look at the tables first. So at the top level, there's a table called FX expression. Now, what this does is this holds your YAML, JSON, and any dependencies. And hang on, let's go to all. There we go. Okay, so the FX expression table is here, even though we've uninstalled the Dataverse Accelerator app. So this is what holds um, our Power Effects, our YAML, and whatnot for our low-code plugin. So that's there. All right. What about custom APIs? Because that's what an instant plugin is made out of. So those are there. Again, those are standard out of the box tables. So I would have expected those to be there. And then lastly, plugin step for the instant ones. And see plugin package. Okay, I'm not seeing plugin step, but let's move on. All right, so the next thing we need to look at is the underlying plugin infrastructure that Microsoft provide for these low-code plugins. So if we'll go over here to the Dataverse Accelerator app, or excuse me, to the XRM toolbox, there is a plugin assembly called PowerFX Plex plugins, and within that there's a plugin assembly called PowerFX Evaluator, and this is where our low-code plugins, the automated ones, show up. So we can see that this is here, the generator, the updater. It looks like this infrastructure is in place. So we've got pretty much everything we need behind the scenes to run low-code plugins. All right, let's move on to the solution that I've imported. So I'll show you here. I've got a solution that I imported from my environment, from my more stable environment where I haven't uninstalled the Dataverse Accelerator app. And so you can see in my solution, I've got my instant plugin, which is a custom API. This is just a simple one that does calculations. And then I've got a automated one, and all it's going to do is set the name on my test table. So I've got an automated and an instant plugin that I've imported into this environment. So let's go ahead and play the app and run this to see if it works. So we've got all the elements here. So even though we don't have the Dataverse Accelerator app, we've got all the elements to make a low-code plugin run. So let's come over here and let's go to my test tables. And so I've got this table called test table, again, because I can't spell chrysanthemum. And what I'm going to do is I've got a low-code plugin, and it's simply going to count the number of tables and stick that into an interpolated string to set the name. So let's go ahead and create a new one. And we can pretty much set any field here just to save the record. So let's just put C there for Celsius. Let's go ahead and save the record. Cross our fingers and toes. And you can see that it's worked. The plugin has set the name. So even though we don't have the Dataverse Accelerator app, that automated plugin is working in this environment. Now, you might wonder why the numbering works the way it is. That's because the plugin is running pre-operation. So that count rows, it's going to be counting these tables, not the one it's creating. So if you're working with count rows and pre or post operation, you'll need to remember to add a row in a pre-operation scenario. Anyways, so the automated plugins are working. What about the instant ones? So I've created this custom page in my app, and let's go ahead and just run a basic calculation. So this is the first plugin I ever created. It just adds two numbers together. So let's go ahead and run that. And you can see we got an answer. So it is able to, so that instant plugin is working in this environment, even though the Dataverse Accelerator app isn't there. All right, but what about more complex plugins that have, say, an external connector? What about those? So I've got another solution here that I imported. And this one has an instant plugin that is calling a connector to get a Ron Swanson quote, because why wouldn't you? So we've got all the elements that we need here for our instant plugin. We've got a connection reference, we've got our custom API, and our FX expression. And so I've got that here in my custom page as well. So let's go ahead and click that. And so the plugin is running in the background. And as soon as it's done, we should have a Ron Swanson quote. And here we go. We do. So that is the long way of saying, Rebecca, yes, you can run low-code plugins in an environment after you have uninstalled the Dataverse Accelerator app. So so it could potentially be an option for an environment where you don't want users to see that, have access to it. It is potentially in ALM scenarios where you're using managed solutions and you don't want to introduce unmanaged solution layers. It could make a lot of sense to uninstall it from say production environments. The only downside, as near as I can tell, is that we can't see and edit the code, the PowerFX expressions for these plugins. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to swap my environment back to the one that I started in, where I created these, and open up the Dataverse Accelerator app there. So we'll just find it. Here we go. And so that's the only downside at this point that I can see of not having the Dataverse Accelerator app in an environment where you've got plugins running. The other thing would be that you don't have the handy plugin monitor that has been introduced into it. Yeah, so that's the answer. You can run low-code plugins in an environment after uninstalling the Dataverse Accelerator app, and it's running a little bit slowly, but this is my plugin that's calling a connector. So unfortunately, it's running a little bit slow this evening. There we go. All right, so you can see it's just calling a connector, and we'll go look at the instant one, or the automated one, excuse me. And as you can see, this one is just setting the name based on the number of rows in the test tables. Now, the other thing that you might notice here is that some things have changed. We've got this new record, so there's some things that have changed. I'll go into detail on that in a future video with some of the changes with the way automated plugins work and patching and setting and whatnot. But that's it from now. Go do something awesome on the Power Platform today. By all means, send me your questions. I love it when you guys send questions and challenge me to think about stuff and look into it. I get my best material from that, and I learn heaps. And I get to the best part is I get to share it with you all, the community. So thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you all soon, and have a great evening.